everyone. I forgot to turn the camera on. um, so today we're making a nut tart and it's gonna be delicious. So let me introduce myself. Sorry. Hello. Welcome to Eat the Treat. I'm Dr. Amaris Williams. I have a PhD in nutrition. I'm a foodie. I cook, and this is a hypertension friendly recipe. Every month I do a diabetes friendly recipe on the first Saturday and a hypertension friendly recipe on the third Saturday. So today we're making a nut tart. It's gonna be delicious. Let's get started. So this is another recipe from this book, The Sweet Spot by Bill Yassis and Peter Kaminsky. I highly recommend this book if you like desserts and you want to keep them healthy and delicious at the same time. All right. So the first step is to turn the oven on to 375. Okay, my oven is on at 375. Hopefully everybody has turned their oven on to 375. While it's um, preheating, we're going to prepare the pie crust. My pie crust, the instructions that came with it said that I should thaw it for 10 to 20 minutes. Um, Hello, everyone. Again, the oven is at 375 just in case you're joining late. So make sure you turn your oven on. This is my pie crust. It's been thawing for about an hour in the fridge. But if you haven't thawed yours yet, you can thaw it at room temperature for 10 to 20 minutes. That's what my instructions said on my pie crust. So depending on what pie crust you bought, that will determine what you do to it. So the next step that my pie crust instruction said is to take a fork and prick the surface of the pie crust thoroughly all over. And so that's what I'm going to do now. I don't know if you can see the little holes I'm making, but because we're going to pre-bake this crust. If you're following along in the cookbook that like maybe you got the cookbook after I recommended it 2 weeks ago, the crust that is in the recipe in the cookbook is a good crust. It's just that it calls for a lot of ingredients that I don't think people have, like almond flour. I have a very extensive pantry and I don't have almond flour. So I decided that we would just use store-bought crust. I'm not sure if you need to prick the sides, but I'm going to do that just to be thorough. So store-bought crust, it'll be fine for this application. I do have a recipe for a very good pie crust, but it's very time intensive. You got to make it and then let it rest for 2 hours and then roll it out and all that other kind of stuff. So I don't think it's good for this application, but for other applications, sure, certainly. Okay, next, while the oven is preheating, we can roast the nuts. I know in the um, instructions I said that the nuts should already be roasted, but in case you have raw nuts like I do, like these are my hazelnuts, and they're raw, and I have these almonds. I buy stuff in bulk, just FYI, wondering where I have these huge bags of nuts. My peanuts are already roasted. So first I'm going to turn my pan on to medium, and then I'm going to measure out the nuts. So we need 2 cups total nuts. I've divided that in 3, and I'm going to have 2/3 cup of almonds, 2/3 cup of hazelnuts, and 2/3 cup of peanuts. But depending on how many different types of nuts you want to include in your tart, depends on how you divide it up. So hopefully everyone remembers their elementary school fractions lessons and I just put them in a dry pan and let them roast a little bit. And after a while, I'll stir them. Um, I'll stir them around. Meanwhile, what we can be doing is making the liquid part of the filling. I'm going to put my hazelnuts in there at the same time, just for the sake of time. Okay. All right. So, in this pan over here, in case your nuts are already roasted, what we can do is put 1/4 cup of maple syrup, and so I've just got this. This is grade A maple syrup. This store brand, nothing special. Grade A is what I already had on hand, so I'm not going to go out and buy grade B. But if you wanted to save yourself some money and buy lower quality maple syrup for this application, like this is pancake syrup quality. But you can get lower quality for this application if you want it. So 1/4 cup of maple syrup, then 3/4 of a cup of skim milk. So I'm just going to put 3 of my 1/4 cup, my measure in there. All right. And we're going to follow that with 2 tablespoons of oil. This is olive oil that I'm using, but you can use any neutral flavored oil. The recipe, I believe, calls for some type of nut oil. I forget which one. Maybe almond. I don't know. Peanut oil, maybe. Who knows? One of them. Oh, I can smell my nuts are toasting, so I'm going to stir them around a little bit. All right. So, done with this stuff. The last ingredient that we're going to put in there is a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Make sure you keep an eye on your nuts. You don't want them to burn. Okay, so in the pan, we've got 1/4 cup of maple syrup, 3/4 cup of skim milk, 2 tablespoons of oil, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm going to turn this on. And I'm going to let it come to a boil. Stirring my nuts on occasion. And we're going to boil the, once it starts boiling, we're going to count up 2 minutes. And it's going to change color to a light caramel color. It's already kind of that color because of the maple syrup, but it's going to darken just a bit. And so that's what we're waiting for on the liquid. But while we're doing that, let me show you a little bit of nutrition facts. So, I know this is the highlight of your recipe experience, but so this recipe, if you bake it in a pie crust like I have here, and you cut it in quarters, and then cut those quarters in half, and then cut the eighths that you just made in half again, you have 1/16 of a pie. And that is what this nutrition facts label is in reference to, 1/16 of this recipe. So that's about 200 calories, under 200 calories for that, which means you have a little extra calories for a little bit of ice cream if you want. I know when I told my mom that I was making this today, she said that she wanted some ice cream with it. So you could definitely do that. the nuts, if you look at the fat breakdown, it's kind of a high fat recipe, but most of those fats are mono and polyunsaturated, which means they're liquid at room temperature fats, and those are the healthier fats. So the nuts are a great source of healthy fat, and that is why this recipe is more healthy for you. I'm going to stir my nuts really quickly. Okay, I've turned my nut pan off because they're starting to overcook. So let me switch the view back. Okay, so now that I have slightly over toasted nuts here, they're not very hot, but they're a little charred on the bottom because I didn't stir them enough. So hopefully you guys were stirring your nuts and don't do what I do. All right, so I'm going to stir this with the milk and the oil. So when I first made this recipe, it started to curdle. You don't need to break up the nuts if you don't want to. Okay, so now the I don't know if you guys can see that, but the liquid is starting to foam up and boil. That's what we want. But if you are put it in just a pan that's just big enough for that mixture, you might end up with it boiling over. So just watch it. And if it starts to get close to the rim, you can blow on it, and that'll calm it down a little bit. Okay, my oven is singing to me, which means it's preheated. So hopefully your ovens are also preheated. I'm going to put the pie crust in there, and it's going to bake for 10 to 12 minutes. Okay? Okay, the pie crust is in the oven, and 10 minutes later we're going to get it out, and by then our nut mixture will be ready to put in it. So to answer your question, I think I answered your question, but let me just get back to it. You don't have to break up the nut pieces. I have small pieces that are peanuts, and then medium-sized pieces that are hazelnuts, and then larger pieces that are almonds. And when I made this, it all turned out just fine. So you don't need to break it up. Just put it in there as you have it. All right, so I have turned, you can see on the screen that I have turned my liquid pot down from a 5 out of 10 to a 4 out of 10. And I'm still gonna stir my nuts on occasion because this is a cast iron skillet that I have them in, and it's still very hot, even though I've turned it off. Okay. And really, all we're doing is waiting for this here to change color. It's already darkened some. But we want it to darken a little bit more so that when we bake it in our tart, we're gonna get a nice crunch. It's gonna be kind of like a brittle, but not quite, because of the milk kind of dilutes the sugar. If the sugar were more concentrated, we would get kind of a brittle type filling. And I'm glad that this is gonna satisfy your nut cravings without too much sugar and added unhealthy salt or anything like that. The recipe does call for a little salt, but not very much. Okay, so don't forget to stir your liquid. So I know a few people on here do like nuts. Does everyone else like a good nut dessert here? If you can type in the chat while you're waiting on your liquid to cook, that would be great. So the curdling happens. First time I made this recipe, my liquid curdled, and um it came out just fine. So I don't think that you should be too worried about it curdling. Just keep on going and keep going, because mine has curdled too. You can't tell now because it's boiling, but before it started boiling, I could see that the protein had separated from the whey of the milk, which is just it's fine. And I think that it has a lot to do with the vanilla extract, because that's um, an alcohol based extract, and when you put alcohol in milk, it causes it to curdle. All right, so I think we're about there. The next step with the liquid is to add the toasted nuts to the liquid. So that's what I'm going to do. Oh, I've got to measure out my peanuts. So I'm using 2/3 cup of peanuts, but you use whatever you have, whatever math you've done. Follow your own calculations. All right. And then we're just going to stir this in. And the last and final ingredient in this mixture is a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And so that's the only salt besides what's in the pie crust. That's the only salt in this whole meal. Not meal, but dessert. Please don't eat this as a meal. Don't listen to what I say, basically. Okay, so we're going to let this stir and boil for another 2 minutes. It's going to darken even more, and that's what we want. And I think I put my pie crust in at about 14 minutes into this. Into this demo, and I think we've got about 4 minutes left on the baking of the pie crust. So we're just gonna simmer this for 2 minutes. I think it's up a little too high. I'm turning mine down to 3. All right. Now this recipe is contraindicated if you have diverticula. So if your doctor has told you you have pockets in your intestines where food gets stuck, nuts are not a good idea for you to eat. And I'm sure your doctor has already told you that. So this would not be a good recipe for those people. But if you do have diverticula and you do want a healthier dessert, the dessert that we made on the 1st of April, no joke, was a chocolate cake, and you can view that video on the Eat to Treat YouTube web channel, and then make it and enjoy it. It was very good. I served it to all the members of the board, and I served it to my mother, and they all enjoyed it. So definitely check that out. Okay, so it's been 2 minutes that we've been cooking the nut mixture. I'm going to turn mine off and then check on my pie crust. So I'll be right back. All right, so the instructions on my pie package said bake it until it's browned, and it's not quite browned yet. So I'm not going to take it out quite yet. But this nut mixture is smelling very good. I love the maple flavor, the vanilla, and the nuts themselves. So the peanuts plus the almonds plus the hazelnuts just smells great. All right. So I know, like I said, I know some of you guys like nuts. What other nut dishes have you tried that are um, more healthy desserts that you would think of? Or have you all your nut desserts been extremely unhealthy, like the I think it's Cheesecake Factory that has the 7 layer chocolate cake, and it's not like 7 thin layers, it's 7 really big layers of chocolate cake. I don't think that has nuts in it though, so maybe that's not very relevant. But something like that, but with nuts in it, like that would be delicious, but not the best dessert for if you're trying to watch your weight or your blood pressure or your blood sugar. So, um, what have you guys had or made that you would recommend to someone who is trying to be healthy but still enjoy the food that they're eating? Yeah, you can taste it now. I mean, there's no raw eggs in this. So, I tasted this before when I made it the first time, I tasted it before I put it in the pie pan, and it's just really good. Basically, I didn't want to waste good pie crust on something that wasn't going to be good. So I tasted the filling and I was like, "Ooh, this is going to be good." So I put it in there. Okay, I'm going to go get my pie crust out. I'll be right back. Okay. It's a little brown on the edges, but it's not like thoroughly cooked. So that's fine. Okay. Now we just basically dump the nuts into the pie crust with the liquid. And you might have a little bit too much nuts, which is not really a problem. All right, let me get all that in there. Okay. So we just spread it out. This is not a deep dish pie pan. This is a regular pie pan. Probably would have been better if I had sprung for the deep dish. Um, but I think this is gonna be fine. The last time I made this, I made it in a rectangular shaped pan after I made my own pie crust. So, backstory, I was trying to find like a really easy to make pie crust that was easy to roll out, or not, that did not require you to roll it out, and could be made quickly in a demo like this. But I could not find one that wasn't horrible. So, like capital H horrible, it was bad. So I did not subject you to that. I just said, okay, we're gonna buy a pie crust. So now that we've got our pie prepared, we're just gonna put it in the oven and bake it for um, for 12 minutes. And I just found a piece of cat hair in mine. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm gonna put this in the oven and we're gonna bake it for 12 minutes. And that's it. We made a nut tart today, and the salt went in at the when we put the nuts in. Um, sorry, I missed that comment. The salt went in when we put the nuts in and was boiled in with the filling for about 2 minutes, and then I turned the heat off. But you can still put it in and just mix it in. It should be fine. Excuse me. Um, right, so today we made a nut tart. It's a hypertension friendly meal, low sodium, high in polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats, which are the healthier fats, and it's gonna be delicious, most importantly. So, thank you so much for joining me. Remember to take your tart out of the oven in 12 minutes, or probably about 11 or 10 minutes now. And I'll see you next time. All right, bye.